Birds have always been messengers. Since ancient times, people have looked to the skies and seen birds as symbols of freedom, guidance, and divine communication. When a bird crosses your path, sings outside your window, or appears in your dreams, it's almost as if the universe is speaking directly to you. But here's the thing, not everyone understands the language of birds, and misinterpreting their messages, that could lead you down a completely wrong path. Let me ask you this, have you ever stopped and truly wondered why birds have this unique ability to capture our attention in such profound ways? It's not just their beauty or their ability to soar through the sky. No, it's something deeper. Birds are often seen as the embodiment of spirit. They exist between earth and sky, between the mundane and the divine. They're like bridges connecting us to something higher, something beyond ourselves. When a bird shows up in your life, it's not just there by coincidence. It's there because you're being invited to pay attention. But here's where it gets tricky. You see, not all bird messages are the same. Different birds carry different energies, different meanings. And if you don't understand the nuances, you might end up thinking you're being guided in one direction, when in fact, the universe is trying to point you somewhere else entirely. Imagine receiving a message and completely misinterpreting it. It'd be like being handed a map, but reading it upside down. You might think you're heading toward your destination, but every step you take leads you further away. So how do you know if you're interpreting these bird messages correctly? First, you have to understand that birds speak to us in symbols. So they represent different aspects of our inner world, our hopes, our fears, our challenges, and our desires. For example, a hawk soaring high might be telling you to rise above your current situation to gain a broader perspective. A crow, on the other hand, might be nudging you to confront something hidden, something you've been avoiding. But here's the problem. Too often, we only see what we want to see. We project our desires, our fears, and our biases onto these symbols, and in doing so, we risk losing the real message. Now think about the last time you saw a bird that caught your attention. What did you feel in that moment? Did you feel a sense of peace, or was there tension? Did you feel like the bird was urging you to act, or was it inviting you to pause and reflect? These feelings are just as important as the bird itself. They're a part of the message, but sometimes we're not ready to hear what the bird is truly telling us. Sometimes we're so caught up in our own stories, our own narratives, that we twist the message to fit what we want to believe. But the truth is, the universe doesn't always give us what we want. It gives us what we need. Now, let's go deeper. Let's talk about the most common mistake people make when interpreting bird messages. They assume that every bird is a sign of something positive, but that's not always the case. Yes, birds can bring messages of hope, clarity, and guidance, but they can also bring warnings. They can show up to tell you that something is off, that you're heading down the wrong path. Ignoring these warnings, or worse, interpreting them as signs of encouragement, is like walking toward a cliff and convincing yourself that you're about to take flight. So, I ask you, when was the last time a bird appeared in your life and you felt uneasy? Did you brush it off? Or did you pause to consider that maybe, just maybe, it was trying to tell you something important, something you weren't ready to hear? Let's dive deeper into the idea of warnings, because this is where a lot of people get lost. Birds, as spiritual messengers, don't just appear to tell us everything is going to be okay. Sometimes they show up to shake us awake, to bring us face to face with something we've been avoiding. And if you misinterpret the warning, well, you could end up going astray, making decisions that lead you further away from your true path. So the universe speaks in symbols, and birds are one of its most direct messengers. But the truth is, not every message is easy to accept. Sometimes the bird is telling you that it's time to make a change, a big one. Maybe it's telling you to leave a situation that no longer serves you, to let go of a relationship, or to face a truth you've been denying. So, but here's the challenge. We're wired to resist change. We cling to comfort, even when it's no longer good for us. So when a bird shows up with a message that challenges us, it's easy to misinterpret it. So it's easy to convince ourselves that the message is positive, that we don't need to make any changes at all. Here's where things can get dangerous. Imagine that a bird, like a raven or a crow, appears in your life. These birds are often seen as symbols of transformation, of endings and beginnings. But they can also be warnings. They might be telling you that something is coming to an end, and that if you don't prepare yourself, you could be caught off guard. But instead of seeing the raven as a messenger of change, you might convince yourself that it's a sign of protection, that everything is fine, that no action is needed. You see how easy it is to misinterpret the message. It's human nature to avoid discomfort. We don't want to face difficult truths, but the universe isn't concerned with our comfort, it's concerned with our growth. And sometimes, growth requires us to face challenges, to confront the parts of ourselves and our lives that we've been avoiding. That's why birds show up. They're there to guide us, but only if we're willing to listen, truly listen to what they're saying. So, how do you know when a bird is bringing a warning? One way is by paying attention to how the bird makes you feel. Does its presence bring a sense of unease, of discomfort? You feel like it's trying to get your attention, trying to tell you something urgent. These feelings are not to be ignored. They are just as much a part as the bird itself. But here's the hard part. You have to be willing to accept the message, even if it's not what you want to hear. You have to be willing to face the truth, to make the changes that the bird is urging you to make. Because if you don't, if you continue to ignore the warnings, you risk going further and further off your path. Hey, think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like the universe was trying to tell you something, but you didn't want to listen? Maybe it was a bird that kept appearing, or maybe it was a series of coincidences that seemed too clear to ignore. But instead of taking action, you brushed it off. You convinced yourself that everything was fine. How did that work out for you? Let's take this conversation to another level. We've talked about warnings, about the potential dangers of misinterpreting bird messages. But what if I told you that bird messages aren't just about warnings? What if birds are here to guide us, to offer us a way forward, even when things seem uncertain or difficult? Yes, birds can bring warnings, but they can also bring hope, clarity, and reassurance. The challenge is knowing how to recognize the difference. Birds don't just show up randomly. They appear when we need them the most, when we're at a crossroads in our lives, when we're facing a decision or a challenge that requires us to tap into our deeper wisdom. And here's the beautiful part. The bird isn't just telling you what to do. It's inviting you to connect with your own inner guidance, your own intuition. Have you ever noticed that birds often appear during moments of stillness, when you're alone with your thoughts, when you're contemplating something important? This is not a coincidence. Birds are mirrors of our inner state. They reflect back to us what we're feeling, what we're thinking, and what we're ready to confront. And sometimes they show up to remind us that we already have the answers within ourselves. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all bird messages are meant to be taken literally. Sometimes the bird is pointing you toward a deeper truth, something that isn't immediately obvious. For example, if you see a bird flying high in the sky, it might not just be telling you to rise above your current situation. It might be inviting you to see the bigger picture, to gain a new perspective on something you've been too close to. Or if a bird lands near you, it might not just be a sign of peace or comfort. It might be asking you to ground yourself, to come back to the present moment, to stop worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. The key is to approach bird messages with curiosity, not with certainty. Too often people want clear answers. They want the bird to tell them exactly what to do, to lay out a step-by-step plan for their life. But that's not how the universe works. The bird is there to guide you, yes, but it's also there to remind you that you are the one in control of your own destiny. The bird is offering you a nudge, a signpost, but you are the one who has to walk the path. So, the next time a bird appears in your life, ask yourself, what is it guiding me toward? What part of myself is it asking me to connect with? And more importantly, am I ready to listen? Now, let's bring everything together. We've talked about warnings, about guidance, about the potential dangers of misinterpreting bird messages. But at the end of the day, here's what you need to remember. Bird messages are not something to fear. They are gifts. They are opportunities for growth, for transformation, for deeper connection with your true self. Too often, people get caught up in the idea that birds are omens, that they're here to predict the future or to tell us what's going to happen. But that's not really the point. The point is not to use bird messages as a way to control your life or to avoid uncertainty. The point is to embrace the mystery, to trust that the universe is always guiding you, even when things don't make sense. Our birds remind us that we are never alone. They show up at just the right moment, offering us a glimpse of something higher, something beyond our everyday concerns. And when we pay attention, when we listen with an open heart, we realize that the bird isn't just bringing a message, but inviting us to step into a new way of being, a way that is more aligned with our true selves, with our purpose, with the flow of the universe. So, I ask you, the next time a bird appears in your life, how will you respond? Will you brush it off as just another coincidence, or will you take a moment to pause, to reflect, to listen? Will you allow yourself to receive the message, even if it's not what you expected, even if it's not what you wanted to hear? Because here's the truth, the universe is always speaking to us, and birds, they're one of its favorite messengers. The question is, are you ready to listen?